Hello, welcome to Salt Lake City. I'm Patrick Chapin with Hall of Famer William Jensen, who competed this weekend using a Reed Duke contraption, if I'm not
Shockingly,
mistaken.
yeah.
Now, I understand there's few men on Earth who understand the insane mind of Reed Duke quite as well as you. Break down a little bit the strategy that he put together for us.
So in a shocking turn of events, I'm going with the Jun deck, designed by Reed Duke. I think one of Reed's strengths as a deck builder is his ability to tune his decks and keep all the cards, one of this, two of this. For example, the main deck has one Doomblade, two Tragic Slip, two Putrefy, one Mizzing Mortars, and this is not by mistake. Reed has put in a lot of time with this deck, a lot of effort with this deck, and
So it's quite a mix of different removal spells.
exactly, yeah.
Why ones and twos? Why not just four of whichever one you like the most?
Well, the issue is take Doomblade. It doesn't kill Olivia, which is a huge problem. But what it does is it gives you a 2-mana answer to Thundermaw Hellkite or Hellrider at instant speed. There's one Dreadbore, which does kill Olivia and adds the versatility of being able to kill a Planeswalker. But of course, when they play a Hellrider on 4, you can't kill it before the triggers start going on the stack.
So you just kind of want to mix.
You want a mix of things that are good for different situations. And then for cards like Tragic Slip and Putrefy, which are overall more versatile, there's 2 of each of those. 4 bonfires. Obviously, you want to miracle them as much as you can.
Oh, fantastic. And what about your creature base?
So the list I'm playing has 4 Thragtusk, which is arguably the best creature or best card in Standard right now. 4 Huntmaster of the Fells, 3 Olivia, and 3 Scavenging Ooze, which is sort of like... Scavenging Ooze is interesting because it's a 2-mana creature, but on turn 2 it's not even very good. But oftentimes you get in long, grindy games with Jund. Late in the game you have 10, 11 mana out, you play a Scavenging Ooze, and against the control deck, they don't want it to resolve because they have Snapcaster Mages in their hand and they'll be rendered useless. Or versus creature decks with, for example, the red-green aggro deck, the only removal they have is Domri Raid and Mortars, and at that point they just can't deal with it. It's just, you can make it a 7/7 or an 8/8, and it's really hard to get through.
Now I noticed you guys don't play Lifebane Zombie like the majority of other Jund decks.
That is correct.
What's the reasoning?
Well, I've talked to Reed about this, and we sort of felt like, well, first of all, one issue with Lifebane Zombie is you can miss with it. You also have to spend your 3rd turn on it, which your ideal draw with the Jund deck is always turn 2 Farseek into one of your big threats on 4. Another thing is, it often just dies incidentally. Like, they play Olivia and kill it, and then you kill their Olivia, or you bonfire them and it just gets caught in the crossfire or whatever. And the effect just isn't that potent. Like, it's sort of like playing an Ostracize for 3 mana.
Ah, okay. So it's just not having a big enough impact in the game all
That's
the time.
what I think.
Because you don't value the body enough.
The body, I don't think, is relevant enough to make it worth it.
So what kind of a deck is this? Is this an aggro deck?
This is a control deck.
So now, how does this differentiate between this and blue control decks? Like, where do you draw the line between something like a blue-white control deck versus anything mid-range?
Well, I think the major difference is a blue-white deck, what they really try to do is keep the threats from reaching the board. They get on the board, they Azorius Charm, counter, dissipate, Snapcaster, Essence Scatter. What the Jund deck does is it knows the threats are going to be on the board, and it has a lot of reactive ways to deal with those threats. It also wants to get in situations where your opponent's threats just aren't as impactful as your cards, Like, if you can get to turn 4 or 5 safely and your opponent is still casting Burning Tree Emissaries and you're casting Thragtusks, who cares?
Right, absolutely.
Yeah.
Now, what about when you're playing against a control deck? Are you trying to be more controlling than the control deck, or do you do you become more aggressive?
I think it varies a little from game to game, but I think in general, Jund becomes the deck the beatdown, if you will, the aggressive deck. In terms of, like, you're trying to play threats to reduce their hand, get them to commit all their counters and other things, and then usually you try to finish it with a big Rakdos return or a Garruk and draw a bunch of cards.
So is it safe to say that you're the control deck against aggressive decks, but you're often forced to be the aggressive deck against controlling decks?
Yeah, that's sort of how I would view it.
Which In next level deck building, we talk about is obviously one of the hallmarks of true mid-range decks, which Jund is kind of the poster boy of.
Yeah.
Like, it is the purest form of just of mid-range. Much better than playing things like mono black control or the
Right.
rock or anything, largely because of the would you say your creatures are just much better threats?
Oh,
and
for
you have
sure.
more variety of ways to interact reactively.
The creatures are so big and so powerful that if you need to be the beatdown or be the aggressor, you can do that. Whereas with like a mono black deck, usually you're just trying to gain so much control that it's hard to out control the true control decks.
So, two quick questions. One, generally, what kind of decks is Jund the best and worst at? Like, what kind of decks does it beat, and what kind of decks does it lose to?
Well, I think the worst matchup right now is Brian Kibler's red-green aggro deck that boards in 4 Burning Earth. All the threats are big, have haste. Domri is a real problem. Like, I haven't done too well against turn 2 Domris with Jund to this point. I've played it, even before this weekend, either on Magic Online or in other tournaments. And Domri can be a problem if you can't immediately deal with it. But the other aggressive decks, I think, are some of your best matchups. Like, I feel really comfortable against the mono red aggressive decks or the Naya Humans deck.
And is this largely just as a response to Burning Earth in a deck full of good cards that happen to be pretty decent against you?
I think so. Like, Thundermaw is very good against the Jund deck because, like I said, it's a control deck, but you're tapping out on your turn every turn to deal with their threats. It's not a traditional control deck where you can just keep passing with mana up, deal with their threats at instant speed.
And finally, I guess that brings me to the last question, which is, how do you deal with Burning Earth?
Right now I have two Golgari Charm in the sideboard, and
Just
that's
cross
it.
your fingers.
Yeah, I mean, I managed to race it one game yesterday. I think it was on camera.
Yep.
He played 2, but I mean, I guess that's sort of the pitfall. If you draw too many Burning Earths and not enough pressure, I was able to just get the big creatures on the board first.
All right. Well, we're going to have your deck list all over the place, I guess, probably up here. Thank you for joining us.
Yep, thanks for having me,
Hey,
and
good luck
thanks
in the
to
next round,
Reed
man.
for the deck.
Yeah, absolutely.